Hi there everyone, welcome back to Dandelion Delphi Tutorials. So we're going to have a look at the supplementary of 2016, question 3. This will now be a typical question 4 for you, as the papers change from a 3 question paper to a 4 question paper. Grade 11s and 12s can do this question as it contains one-dimensional arrays. So this paper gave us a text file and then they explain the format of the text file here. There's a town, a semicolon, a town, and then the distance between the towns, and then whether they contain a mountain pass or not between the two towns. So if you have a look here, this is from this town to that town. That's the distance, and there is no mountain pass, where this one, there is a mountain pass. In question 3.1, they tell us to read from this text file, and then the user will pick in the combo boxes. They're going to pick a town from 2 combo boxes, one for the departure and the other one for the destination. And you then have to determine whether there is a direct route between these 2 towns, and also then display the distance and whether it contains a mountain pass or not. So they say the direct routes does not need to be in an exact order. So for example, if this was your data, we don't have to have the departure town first and destination second, because you can go from this one to that one or that one to this one. So it doesn't matter which one it is, as long as they're in one line in the text file, it means that you can go directly from this town to that town. Now, if they pick 2 towns that are not on the same line of the text file, then there's no direct route and you have to display a message saying that. Now, if you read this question further, and I would suggest doing that during your reading time before an exam, you will see that later on you need to do something similar. So the memo actually had reading from the text file in there twice, but to get full marks, you didn't have to use that method. What I suggest you do is read from the text file, maybe in Form 1 Activate, and then place this data into 4 arrays. If you have a look right at the top here, it said there that there's no more than 50 lines in the text files. That there means that you can create an array from 1 to 50. So if you want to follow my method, maybe go to Form 1 Activate and read the text file into the arrays, and you need to then declare the 4 arrays to store that data. I'll scroll up to show you the data from the text file. There we go. You press pause and try that first. So here I have the 2 string arrays from 1 to 50 to store the departure and the destination. My array distance to keep the distance between the 2, and then whether it contains a mountain pass or not. I used Boolean there. You could have declared this array as a string as well, it doesn't really matter. We'll use it in a similar way. This is my Form 1 Activate, and then I have my array, my variables declared. My usual if file exists. Remember, it's something we have to do even though we're not asked to do it. So test if the file exists, display a message, and I'm going to use exit there with my begin and end. I'm using iCount. I also declared that as a global variable to determine how many values are stored in my arrays. And then assign file T file with the name of the text file, reset T file like we always do, and then while not end of T file. But important that I don't want, if this text file contained more than 50 values, even though it said it didn't, I always include this here to ensure if this file was larger, it won't go over 50, because the moment it goes over 50 and my arrays were declared up to 50, my program will crash with an access violation. Hopefully you know now how to read from a text file if you watch my previous videos. We have readline T file. Remember, any function or procedure that deals with T file is going to have that as the first or the only argument in there. You can see that, and very important, your close file there as well. Then we have readline into the string. This is a recommendation. I always copy a line from my text file into the while loop so I can see what I'm dealing with. So the first thing we want to find is the semicolon. So my pos is finding the semicolon, and then I'm copying out everything up to and including before the semicolon. That's why I have ipos -1 here. Now I want to get rid of that part. I'm going to delete it, so using delete S line and then including ipos, which means it will delete all of that as well as the position of the semicolon. So I'll be left with just this part here. So now I can search for the hash, and that's what I'm doing here, and I'm copying that out. Both of these are going into my arrays, my string arrays, into array departure ICount and array destination ICount. And then I'll get rid of that part. So as usual, pos, copy, delete, pos, copy, delete. Foolproof way of reading from a text file. Then I now am left with this part here. So I need to search for the star, but I have to declare array distance as an integer. So I have to string to int my copy. Still pos, copy, and delete, but there I need to add my string to int because copy is going to return a string, and I need to store this value as an integer. Now once I've deleted that, I'm just left with yes. So either your yes, if you declared array mount or mount and pass or whatever you called it as a string, you could just have said array mount ICount is assigned to S line. That will now store the yes or the no. There's no character to be found, so we don't need to pos here, we don't need to copy, we don't need to delete. We are left with that bit that we can store. But what I've done is I've declared these as Boolean arrays, but it really doesn't matter, and I am storing that either as a true or a false, depending on whether it was yes or no. And there's the end of my while loop and my close file. So now I won't be using the text file anymore. I'm going to use my arrays, and this is what you need to accomplish. They're going to select the departure and destination from the combo box, and you have to determine if there is a direct path, and if there is, you need to display the distance between the two towns as well as indicate whether there was a mountain pass or not. So press pause and try it yourself. I will show you some output just now. There we go. Here is when Carla and Elliot was selected. It says there the two names and then the distance, and then it included a mountain pass. Then we have another one here with a strange name, Oogie, I don't know, and McClear. And the distance there was 25 kilometers, but it does not contain a mountain pass, so test your program with this as well. And then there is a third one. Oh, this is my local Hodidas. Here they are, Queenstown and Maclear. There's no possible route to be found. Make sure you display that as well. Since all the output here is at the top of the rich edit, I have included a .clear before I display. Here is my .clear, and then I get input from the user for the destination and the departure from the respective combo boxes. You can use .text, but this line of code here, both of these lines that are very similar, are very important because there's no .text for list boxes and radio groups. So if they would have changed this to a radio group or list box, you definitely had to use this method. So I suggest you study that. I've used the Boolean variable to determine if I have found a direct route between the two towns, and I've also made my loop stop if I do find one. So therefore I will need a k, and I'm going to test if k is less than ICount. That will make the loop stop if I haven't found any, but this here will make the loop stop as soon as I found one. So it's either going to stop when I find a direct route or when I reach the end of the array. There I have my ink, and there are many other ways of doing this. I have used pos for those who have watched my videos before. I love pos. Pos is my favorite function. So what I'm doing is, since it doesn't matter whether the town is the destination or the departure. It could be swapped around, doesn't matter. You just need to find a direct route between these two. I am now using the first one, the departure, or the second one, and I'm testing if it appears in these two arrays combined. So if they had Carla, let's say departure was Carla, but it was in array destination, it would find it in here, because this is searching for the existence of Carla in both arrays. I've just combined them next to each other. But the destination must also then be in these two arrays. So therefore I need to use an AND. It's important because that's the only way. These are parallel arrays. It's the only way that I can determine if there's a direct route from the departure to the destination. The two codes are very similar. I also combine the two arrays here for the departure and the destination. And I'm just replacing destination there with departure there. Another method, here's an if. I commented out, you could have tested if the departure was equal to the departure that was entered, or the departure is equal to the destination, and then you have to test both for the array destination as well. I can scroll up. If you use that method, it's still correct. However, you have to make sure that this is in a bracket with an OR and an AND in between these two brackets, and that is in a bracket there with that condition there with an OR in between. So this is a little bit shorter using the pods, but both ways would be correct. If I do find this, then I'm changing be found to true, which would make my loop stop, and I'm going to display from this one to that one. This is my distance in a parallel array in the position K where I found it. Important to add these little labels there at the end. Sometimes there's a mark for it. And then I have to say whether the route includes a mountain pass or not. Now remember, my array mount was a Boolean array, so I can say equals to true. You don't have to do that because your if statements will automatically test it. By default, it tests if this is true. If you use this though as a string, then you can just say equals to yes there. So you would just add the equals to yes like that. If it is, then we display the route includes a mountain pass, else we display does not include a mountain pass. This is now the end of my while loop, and finally we have to display if this was not found. If I didn't find a direct route between these two, then I had to display no possible route between this town and that town. Remember, this can be written in many ways. I just used if not be found. You could also say if be found is equal to false or not true. Anyway would be correct. In the next question, they're asking us to store input from the user again from the combo box for a departure town. Now you have to go and find how many neighboring towns there are by determining if there's a direct route to this town. And then you have to display the distance between these towns. So if you look at the output, it probably makes more sense. They're going to select Whittlesea, and you have to go and find how many other towns it can reach directly, as well as the kilometers there. Again, if you didn't use the arrays, you could have read from the text file again, but I find using the arrays quite useful and good practice for you as well. And you have to display this in a column format, so you're going to have to use your #9, sorted in ascending order according to the distance between these two towns. That's very important. Now, there's no way around this without doing arrays. You're going to have arrays declare here if you didn't use the same method that I have been using up to now. Just remember again that the town they selected can be either in the destination or the departure array. That's important to note. Press pause and try question 3.2 yourself. I'll show you the memo just now. It was important to include here or declare two arrays here, one where you can go to for this town I've made it the same declaration 1 to 50. Who knows, maybe the same town appears in each line. And then the kilometers as well as an integer. Here we have the input from the user again from the combo box. I've used that same line of code. And now I'm going to loop through my arrays from 1 to iCount. Remember, iCount was my global variable that keeps track of how many items there were in those arrays that I declared right at the start. So I'm using this to test, is it in the departure town? If it is, I'm increasing the counter inside this if, and I'm adding the destination to this array 2, because I can go from here to there. I'm adding the kilometers to array kilometers, also I counter here, but array distance k, because these are all parallel arrays. If that is not true, I have a nested if here to see if the departure is maybe in the destination array. If it is, I do the same thing that I did in there. Increase the counter, add the departure now to the counter, and then add the kilometers to array kilometers using array distance. Now, after this code, these two arrays will have values, but they asked us to sort it. So there is my normal sort method. I out is 1 to the counter minus 1. I in is I out plus 1 to I counter. You really need to study this. Then array kilometers I out, is it greater than array kilometers I in? This line here for our if statements is always to the part that it determines according to what are we sorting. We want to sort according to the kilometers. I don't know ever when I'm coding whether this is the right way. But what I do is I know my sorting procedure, and then I run it, I test it, and if it's in descending order instead of ascending order, I just come back here and swap it for the other character. Now I need to use my swapping method that we have done many times. Remember, we start and end with a keeper. Whatever variable I use here on the right, array kilometers I out, then I out needs to go on the left in the next line, followed by the other one, so I have I in there. If you started with I in needs to go there, I out goes there. So you can draw these diagonal lines, I out, I in, and I in. Start and end with your keeper. I have two keepers. The one is integer, because I want to swap an integer array. The other one is string, because I want to swap string arrays. So don't just use a string here, else you have to string to int all the time. So use a variable declared with the same data type as these arrays. So now it's been sorted. All I have to do now is clear it. There was a large gap, so I had to set a tab count and a heading to say we can access this town directly from, and there's my selection from what the user entered. And now I loop from 1 to I counter. That's the one that got a value here, and I'm just displaying array 2 and the kilometers, which is integer, so important to use your int to string, and your #9 to make your neat columns. And there's my label. Thank you guys for watching Dandelion Delphi tutorials. If you are looking for more practice and explanation on one-dimensional arrays, you need to go and have a look at Dandelion Delphi Book 2. You can find this on the Etsy store, ITSI, or you can visit my website. Hope to see you soon.